Come on. Da 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 da. What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give Instagram a couple of minutes to get those. Oh, not Instagram, YouTube. Let's let YouTube get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never popped into one of my lives before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside, and I am a little dizzy with everything. And that has to be said right off the hop as we move forward, because we're picking a new word today to go into the topic of for the rest of the week. And it does make me nervous because of the lessons that I've gotten, because of some of those experiences and some of that contemplation, right? That it gets a little bit heavy sometimes. So I'm optimistic that we are going to have something light, that we're going to have something fun to talk about this week. Hello, Kathy dear. Hello, Kathy dear. Me and my sister, we went thrifting today. She gave me a phone call this morning. I had a whole itinerary of things to get accomplished, but I do understand that, I haven't been outside in the past couple of days. Just that feeling like I really, truly needed rest. I had energy for the most part. I could have gone out. I could have done, but I just felt compelled to flake, and I did the very best that I could in flaking, because I do get bored. It's not a matter of I need to be entertained. It's not like that at all. But maybe it's that idea of just always staying busy, so that so that we're too busy to be doing what we really should be doing. And maybe that's the message. My sister called me this morning. She said, Cindy, let's go thrifting. Oh, I was ready to get out of the house. I said, yep, come and get me. And then we switched spots in the car and we drove 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 thrift stores we did today. We didn't grab too much. We're trying to be smart in what we're investing in. We're looking for things that we can flip for a profit, right? So today, well, last week was really, really good, because for $2 she got two complete sets of My Little Ponies and all the accessories and everything. And she thinks she's going to make a few $100s on that. She found that score. I'm not as good as she is. Like, she has the things she's expert in. I have the things that I'm expert in. But it is a crapshoot. So you do your research, you Google Lens the items, right? You do eBay comparisons, you look at the completed sales just to see how much they drew, because anybody can put a price on something, right? If it's your favorite and it's got your heart, it's something your grandmother gave you and is all falling apart, piece of crap, right? You might put $100 on it. But in all actuality, it might not be worth a dollar, if that, right? Because we attach our hearts to the value, the value of things. So we gotta play it smart. I saw lots of things today that I went, ooh, ooh, and I didn't spend one penny today. Not one penny. I just went out there just to enjoy the day with my sister and to see if we could get a good score. And we got some good scores today. It started off really slow. We didn't think we were going to find anything. And then we went to Salvation Army. I don't know if you have Salvation Army in the States. Here in Canada, we have Salvation Army, and it's like Goodwill. And and we like the Salvation Armies. So we went in there, and she found brand new, Alice again. She found brand new in a box a 1970s robot. I have no idea how it managed to stay on the shelf for even like 1 minute, right? I think the only thing that saved it was a big rack of Halloween costumes that you had to kind of move out of the way when you wanted to look at the shelf. My sister found it. She's pretty certain she's going to get some good money. She's going to get at least a couple hundred dollars for it. But I found something too today. I found a score today also. Oh, right. It was a picture for her boyfriend, but now she thinks she's gonna sell it for $100 or something right off the hop. But I thought her boyfriend might like it, right? Because I know they do purchase things for themselves, and she did, right? But I'm not procrastinating in picking that word. At least I don't think I am. I know Kathy knows I come in and I spew before I actually get into it. But for those of you who have never popped into one of my lives before, hi again. I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And here on YouTube, it used to be an Instagram show, right? As per my mistake there. Um, it used to be an Instagram show, but because I'm such a Google girl, because I started this journey in social media in 2014 on YouTube, and it's not really fair to say because I did start on Instagram at the same time as I started on YouTube. Um, and I was very active on Instagram because I was doing lots of outdoor explores. I used to explore abandoned houses, abandoned one room schoolhouses, abandoned churches, right? Walk around in the fields, walk around in the bush. I did bushcraft videos, right? Just sharing the things that I love to do. And in that sharing, right? We stumble across things as we learn how to navigate what we're doing. And I was in social media, so I really delved deep into it. Grateful that I did. Right? It's a I'm not going to say strange. It's a different experience, but I understand it's only different because it's something I've never experienced before. Because I lived a certain way my entire life and these things never come across my path. How am I to know? Right? We live in a digital age now, right? That we can actually see people in different countries and different cities and different cultures, different religions. Like the way I'm learning about different religions and different aspects of spirituality, it really was never an interest of mine, in all truth. And if you ever asked me, I would kind of say probably not. I'm agnostic, I would say, right? And that's not denying God, but also at the same time stating, right? I'll believe it when I see it, right? And in the networks that I travel in, you're supposed to believe it, right? Then you see it. And in that in that growth, I've come to understand how important it is for us to truly understand those differences that we have with each other. And then when you guys hear me say it takes all kinds to make the world, it's that realization that this world is made up of unique and different experiences, different people with different ideas and different truths and different facts, right? Hello, hot diggity dog. Oh, I haven't heard that one for a long time, right? Hot diggity dog. Who said that? I think it was a movie star, wasn't it? Was it the Three Stooges that said that? Or Laurel and Hardy? I'm thinking of some kind of comedy team. This is what I'm thinking. Hot diggity dog. Maybe I'll Google it after the live show. Good timing, Melvin, because we haven't picked the word because, of course, I'm dribbling away in my conversation. We are going to pick the new word now. You guys, first impression. So we're going to, and this is really good because in the first impressions, you're going to get a true perspective, right? It's nothing rehearsed. It comes from my lessons in life, through my experiences, through conversations that I've had, through the relationships that I've had, right? Yes, of course, right? I've been on social media since 2014. So a lot of my lessons are rooted in video and in documentaries. I guess video and documentaries are the same. I don't have a TV. I threw out my TV years ago, right? Years ago, and never missed it from day one. Never missed it, right? It's through my choices in the content that I choose to watch, right? And I used to sit and watch, for the most part, whatever my sisters was watching, right? And then you get hooked on what they're watching and it becomes what I'm watching, right? And that comfortability of what's familiar. When in all actuality, oh my goodness, I look at some of those shows because I walk into people's houses or we're testing TVs at work, right? I go visit my sister and then I look at the actors in these shows, and for me, I used to look at them like it was reality, like they were the perfect people, they were normal people, and now I look at them and I look at them as characters, as actors, as well, because they're characters and actors, you don't consider them to be genuine. But when you look at them, they actually look like characters, right? Because of the makeup and the lighting, the way they present themselves, that perfection kind of brings to mind of, we're seeing a lot of AI. I'm not sure if you guys have seen it. Right? I spot it right off the hop. And it's not going to be too long from now, people, where we're not even going to be able to tell the difference, right, between an AI character and a human character, and maybe that's a good idea, that in that spontaneity of not understanding the topic, not preparing and trying to make it so perfect, that the unperfect is what's going to be AI's downfall, right? Now, there's an idea for you, right? Because we all want things to be perfect. And of course, as humans, we want the AI to be perfect because at some point they're going to be our surgeons. And well, in all actuality, they are our doctors. I know we're getting to the word. They are our doctors and our surgeons, because I've seen those computer monitors and they're on trolleys with wheels and it goes from one hospital room to another. They actually have digital doctors right now, right? Mental health care going online. Now, I don't think it's going to be detrimental to be able to do that. And in all actuality, I think it might be beneficial, because when it comes to our emotional well-being, you know how it feels to go to see a doctor, like a regular doctor. But can you imagine having to go see therapists and psychologists and counselors and coaches and stuff, and be there in person? It would be a stressful, right? And you wouldn't have clear interactions because there's always that teacher student, right? spectator, participant, and leader, follower, right? Doctor, patient, and, right? I have no education in any of this, right? But I am working in emotions, but I'm working through emotions through my own experiences, through the experiences of some of those people that have been dear to me who have struggled in them, right? And of course, the lessons, right? It's all combined. It's all combined to make up the whole, right? Okay. Let's just pick the word. I don't know why I'm going off like that today, but maybe I'll come back later and watch it and see if there's a message. All I can say is that it's not a heavy week, a deep week. Let's call it a deep week. I had a deep week. That sounds good. That sounds acceptable. That sounds okay because truly, right? It is okay. It's all movement in the end. Okay, you guys, I don't mean to do that, but it is what it is. We're going to pick our word today. And okay, you know what? I know where that word forgiveness is, you guys. I know where it is. I think I could probably do this and get there. So I have to do this in the center so I don't know what side of the page that I'm on, right? So I don't know what side of the page I am on. Here's the word, you guys. We're doing it. Here it is, you guys. Something light, something light, something light. Okay, you guys. It is what it is, right? And you saw my reaction. You saw my reaction here only because this word is my nemesis. Right? It saves my life. it gives me um um okay, I'm just going to tell you what the word is, and we got the word purpose, you guys. Purpose. And maybe that kind of answers that confusion of conversation when I first came in today, because this understanding that people are unique, right? That there is so many different religions out there, so many different political ideas, so many different traditions in the cultures, right? That it's really, really hard to siphon through all that. And it's kind of what I'm doing is I'm going through all of that in trying to distinguish and trying to find commonalities and trying to find solutions, right? For that wiring that we have that's so enmeshed, so entangled. It's kind of wow, it is because when I came into my life, I was all pumped to do the word, and then all of a sudden I went into that spiel and I just confused the whole life. But maybe that was the point in my purpose here. And the truth is, in the lessons, we move closer to that purpose, but think I don't think I'm there yet in that purpose, because there has to be a choice in that. And me understanding in this moment that I in my purpose, I have my promises to myself, right? in that anticipation and that optimism of starting my social media and right, strange, this starting my social media in 2014 and not waking up into any of those ideas until 2019. That's 5 years of taking in lessons and being a blank slate, not truly understanding what any of this was all about. Not saying that I have, right? I'm a little bit closer, possibly, but I'm even, not even close. And in this lifetime, I'm not even going to be close. And I don't think there's anybody in this world who's even close. But I do believe there are souls out there, people out there who are closer, that are closer, right? Perfect. You think that's perfect? This is the scariest word for me ever, because I have been at this since 2014. And then waking up to these ideas and say 2017, 2019, really starting to get a grasp of these things and understanding that there has to be a purpose. Like, there has to be a purpose. And yet, I don't realize in this moment what the purpose is. I get glimpses, I get feelings, right? My intuitions, but I also know in my limiting beliefs of toxic shame and guilt, right? That when I talk about these things, it's uncomfortable. It's strange. It's confusing sometimes, right? And that's why I come back into my lives to watch my lives again so that I can go, oh, that's what I meant. Like, isn't that the silliest thing? Isn't that the silliest thing to say? That's what I meant. Shouldn't I have known what I meant when I said it? Right? This is how I'm thinking. But when we go back into when I came into this live today, right? And I started talking about, strangely, about different cultures and different political ideas, different traditions, and things that go on in other people's lives that I've never experienced, right? And some of that stuff has got to be useful. Some of that stuff has got to be fact. But at the same time, some of it has got to be hooey fooey. It can't be the truth, especially when they're conflicting, when they're totally opposite. Now, lots of things that have been coming into my conversations, in the lessons that I take, through just in contemplation. There's been this word, and I'm gonna have to come back because it's just been wiped from me. So, and I don't think this one's coming back. You guys, purpose. That realization of what I'm doing now and how it started was to have something for myself. Okay, so if I can go in my purpose and attach it to the promises that I made, that I show up here fresh like a loaf of bread, that I follow the lessons, and then I understand a little bit better, right? As we move along. Oh my goodness. You guys, I feel I feel pushed. I feel pushed into a purpose that I don't understand. And I think it's okay because that has been the process for me since the very beginning. And right, Kathy, Malvin, you guys have been with me for a long time. You've seen the changes that I've gone through. And I think for the most part, you guys saw the changes before I saw the changes, right? And I suspect that, that there are people or whoever or whatever's out there because of this idea that, right, I know so little, right? That I know so little, that there are, right, uniques out there. There are people with truths out there that, right, that I might not have ever experienced or ever known about without having those conversations, those experiences, right? That education, reading those books, watching those videos, going to the workshops, going to the seminars, following my passions and following my curiosity and following those questions that just seem where the answers are just on the edge, that if I just move forward just a little bit, if I just push just a little bit more, that something will be released, right? And it doesn't have to be much, right? Because I'm highly sensitive, because I'm empathic, because I'm always, right? I'm watching all the time. It's my hypervigilance, right? That you don't have to give me much, but if you give me a little bit, right? I'll go a little bit of Google crazy on the topic, right? And I'm not the only person who does this, right? I have met lots of people, and lots of people who are doing the same thing I'm doing, and they themselves, right? I have mission statements that I attach to my brand, right? In this creation of what I'm doing online. My purpose is it just to show up and share understanding, because, right, working on these platforms that possibly, who knows, who could use this conversation that we're having right now, right? Who could use that? And who knows that that person could use that, right? It is YouTube. It is Google, right? They know exactly who I am. I don't even try. I don't even try to hide any of it, because there's no point, because if this is my purpose, it has to be genuine, right? Because I suspect Google and YouTube will be around for a very long time. And who knows that maybe on some spaceship that somebody will open up some locker and there will be this dusty tin sitting in the locker. And all it will be is YouTube videos, right? Maybe the purpose is just to share what I'm learning along the way, and just trust that Google and YouTube will get it to the right people in the right moment when they need it the most, just like it happened for me, right? Just like it happened for me. Is this my purpose? I don't know. I don't think so. I think this is a story that I'm playing out. And because of my ideas, Cindy's not coming back, but I do believe there are parts of me that will never, uh, right, disperse, go anywheres. That in that master creation, something, right, was inserted. And I have to understand that my purpose might not be my purpose. If that makes any sense, it might be the purpose of those other parts of me. Maybe my purpose is just to be that voice, just to be that person to show up here every single day and share these conversations because I'm having these conversations and maybe not verbally, right? But it's coming at me. It's coming at me and I'm absorbing it, right? It's one of the reasons why I was a little bit nervous about bringing this show to my YouTube channel, right? Because we are an adventure channel. But it's not going to change, right? I just did this trip to Ontario, and through the lessons that I received, the gift of the lessons, I've come to realize that I could mush it all together, right? Just like I'm all mushed together. I'm trying to untangle the wires, but I think I'm getting a little bit better at distinguishing, right? What ingredients come from what pot. It's all in the same pot now. It's all in the same pot. But at one time they were in different pots, right? And sometimes when you put something in a pot, the ingredients work really, really well together, right? The carrots, the onion, right? The 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 leeks, the peas, like it all works really, really good in a soup, right? In a recipe, if you just look at that, right? As a recipe. But when you start throwing in ingredients that don't work, and that's my worry, right? And that's definitely my worry because it's true. I worry about how these conversations are perceived. And it seems silly right now because I'm perceiving the conversations and I feel like I need to perceive the conversations because possibly my purpose, right? Looking for those answers. I am not delving deep. I am non denominational. But if I look at it as an evolutionary process, right? Understanding that I live in Canada, right? We eat burgers and fries. But there are countries where they're eating snakes and spiders and right? And you can look at that and you go, oh my goodness, that is just, right? But they could be looking at us and going, oh my goodness, look at her eating burgers and fries, right? They're looking at their meals as if they're gourmet. And I'm looking at my meal as gourmet, or at the very least, yummy, right? Like them, yummy. But it's only in my perception, right? Maybe dog does taste good. Maybe horse does taste good. Maybe bear. People eat it, right? But just because I don't eat it doesn't make it wrong, right? It doesn't make it right, but it doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it different, right? It just makes it different. And my purpose is to show up here every single day, unraveling the wires to the best of my ability, making it as uncomplicated. And maybe that's why I'm frustrated. I'm not frustrated. I hung out all day with my sister. She can frustrate anybody, right? And we mirror that, right? So in my purpose, showing up here every day, living by my mission statements, right? Taking in the lessons of people that I resonate with, and understanding, because I have understood this for quite a while now, that I'm trying to create the best human being I possibly can. And maybe that's the conflict, right? Because is this the best human being? Am I on that path into the creation of the best human being I possibly can? It all depends, right? If I can untangle the wires, because Cindy, Cindy is trying to have a say, and she has a say, but there are things that she doesn't understand, right? Like I said, when I first came in, when I came in and I said, sometimes I have to come in and watch my live again, right? So that I can understand what the lesson is. And then I give myself heck, because if I open up my mouth and say something, I should know what that lesson is, right? I shouldn't say things. And I wasn't going to say if I didn't know, but I do know. But I know for myself, and that's the hardest thing about it, is in that perception of others. I think that's where a problem lies for me, right? And I think um, it would be a thorn for anybody in all reality, because right, I don't have a husband, I don't have kids, right? My father was very spiritual, right? My sisters are used to those kind of personalities, right? Makes no difference that I'm swinging that way. It just means, right, I'm just being more like my father, and it's not with intent, right? It's not like intent. I knew I was my father's daughter, but I didn't realize, right? And the thing is, it's different. It's different than my father. It's expanded from my father, but it started with my father. I know they have started with my grandmother and my grandfather on both sides. On No, it was my grandmother and my grandfather on my father's side, right? On my father's side. The purpose is to possibly make some progress in the evolution. I wrote something yesterday down. Oh, I wasn't going to have this conversation. I wrote something down yesterday. It was pretty deep. I don't know where it came from. It came with like diagrams and stuff. And I looked at it and I understood it, but I didn't know if it was my place to present it, right? So what did I do? I folded the page up, I put it in an envelope, and I sealed I sealed the evidence. I sealed the funny, I was gonna say that I sealed the evidence. I was gonna say that. But I sealed the envelope. I'm trying to say, or I was going to say, that I remembered everything that I wrote down, because there was lots of scribbles, lots of diagrams, There was a bit of a conversation there. I got the gist of it, right? And that was the idea, was just to get the gist of it. But again, in that idea of sharing, right? And when we talk about purpose, I think, I don't even think, I know parts of me know what that purpose is, right? But showing up here and trying to express it, and again, it's Cindy in the moment expressing, and the wires, right? The wires. That's what the thing is maybe that's part of the trauma. That's part of the trauma. That's part of the hardening that we probably take on and look at things as part of us. And it is part of us. It is us. It it's all us in the creation of the best human being. Wow, you guys, right? It started off really strange coming into my life today. I was excited today about coming in. I would have been here by 11 o'clock this morning if my sister didn't phone me and say, let's go thrifting, right? I would have been here. And I'm here now all confused, right? And just like I said, when I got that word purpose, we're on it all week, you guys. This is the first impression and the first thing that comes to my mind, because you can see it's the questions, right? It's not having the answers, it's in the pursuit of the answers, it's in the judgment of others. I think it's a little bit of trusting that everything is going to be okay, and I know everything is going to be okay. I do know everything is going to be okay, because that hairy scary is just not there. But that nervousness is definitely there because, right, I'm a student. I'm a student learning. I'm a student self parenting. I'm a student trying to be open to other ideas, understanding that maybe I didn't get the full lesson, right? I didn't get the full lesson. But if I trust in the process and I just show up here every single day, right? Sharing my experiences, sharing my stories, right? Being Cindy, letting some of those other parts of me have a place at the table, right? That those wires will become less and less enmeshed, entangled, and I'll be able to have a better relationship. One of those scribbles that I had is, it was kind of like a circle with a big dot in the middle, big dark black dot in the middle. And I felt the outside was an envelope. Ooh, back to the envelope, was an envelope. And then what was in the center was me. There was another diagram. And it was, I knew it. I knew it as the same circle, but it was no longer a circle. It was like when you crack an egg in a frying pan and then you take the bottom of the eggshell and you hit the yolk, and the yolk kind of goes all the way around like this. Now, right? Hopefully this gets the right person. It goes all the way around like that. Like over hard egg, like an over hard egg, but the yolk is broken and everything's all kind of spilled out into the whites, right? But if you look at that yolk as the wires, right? And then look at the whites as what's feeling uncomfortable as it's meeting the wires, right? As it's touching along the edges of the yellow uh, yolk, right? This is where I think possibly where our pains, my Charlie horses, these kind of things, right? Because it's uncomfortable. It's right, and it's where those two things right, they're they're not rubbing each other well, right? It's my belief that whoever or whatever will never be realized until we can figure this out because, right, he's going to come into something like this and he'll just go like the Wicked Witch of the West, right? Because as humans, we are just too polluted. We're not, right? We're not in that state of grace. We're still in our confusion. We're still moving in our purposes, each one of us, right? And the thing is, all those purposes have to come together at some point. But how can that happen? And it's not going to happen anytime soon because we're not even doing that with our own selves, right? Right? And until we can get along with ourselves, how can we possibly think that we can get along and move with others? And this is right where etiquette comes in, is because I use that to get along. I right. I work with people that probably I would prefer, right? That's not a good example because I love the people I work with. So I'm not going to say that. But let's say I've worked with people. I've worked with people that I would have preferred not to have worked with. But in using etiquette, you can smooth those edges out. You can smooth the possibility of being able to tolerate each other enough that maybe, right, maybe they'll sit down at lunchtime and have a conversation, and Cindy will feel all brave and she'll have this conversation with them, and right. But if we're not rubbing each other well, right? If I'm always coming at somebody with attitude or trying to trip them up, or they're trying to get me in trouble all the time, or whatever. I'm just using that as a scenario, right? I'm just using that as an analogy, right? As an example. But it's through those values that I think, that I know, that we'll be able to get along better. And it, in this digital age, it's very important that we get along with each other because there are countries out there that can't even afford to put food on the table. And yet we're donating our old cell phones, right? And they're getting hooked to the Wi-Fi, and they're seeing where, right, those differences, those things that they've never experienced before. They go, oh my goodness, I didn't know about running water. I didn't know about showers. I didn't realize that somebody could turn a tap on and just put their glass underneath the tap and just take a glass of water, right? Without boiling the water first to get the parasites out and stuff, right? Like, we don't know what's going on in other people's lives, and other people don't know what's going on in our lives, right? But in this digital age, they have that opportunity. And this is where these problems that we're going to have with resentment and jealousy are going to show up. We're all in different stages. You can clearly see it, right? You can see all the misfortune going on in people's lives, but at the same time, right, you see the top 1%. You see people who are super successful. You see the 16-year-olds with Firebirds, or right, fancy cars, Mercedes Benz, whatever it is, right? They can't even have a driver's license yet, but they have these cars because, well, that's the digital age, right? And anybody truly could learn these lessons. And I have to go back to that conversation about the AI, that we're not going to be able to recognize a real human, right? To somebody who is AI. And like I said, I pick it up right away because I move in emotions. I feel, right? It's how I feel people out, where I could feel safe, feel like, oh, right. Sometimes it's just a look, right? Somebody rolls their eyes out up around their head when they see you. Are you going to approach them? No, you won't. But you pay attention to body movements. You pay attention to how people talk, how they look, how they fidget, right? And you can pick up on things very, very, very easily. And going back to this idea of AI, not everybody has that capability, right? It's built from trauma. It's hypervigilance, right? But not everybody has that talent. Very few, because it is a talent. I mean, it manifested through pain, but it serves us now. If we woke to some of these ideas, it serves us now. But what about the people that don't have intuition, that don't feel people out when they meet them, that don't have that insight to know that they're walking into a trap, walking into misfortune, into unkindnesses? Uh, what about lessons that aren't true, or lessons that are exaggerated? That the truth is twisted in a way where it's still the truth, right? Kind of that avoidance kind of thing. In working through emotions, I'll give you an example from my own life, right? I had this trauma bonding relationship with my sister. She took care of everything for me, but because of my toxic guilt and shame, I would never ask her for anything. I would never say, "Oh, can I borrow $20?" Or "I don't have any groceries, and this beautiful apartment that you got me, I can't afford it. I need some help with the rent," right? And there would always be, like, I knew I could ask her, and she always offered before it got to the point where I would have to ask. But the thing was, I always insinuated, and because my sister is hyper vigilant, she's not woke to any of these ideas, but she's like me that way. And we feel each other out. All of our sisters, we all feel each other out. That's how we were brought up, right? But I never had to say anything. Everything was always taken care of that way. But I think it was not in the asking, but in the hinting, in the kinds of conversations, in the looks on my face, right? Because we feel each other out. And in AI, right? There are going to be lots of people who are going to be taking lessons from digital, right? And it's okay if that digital is being offered and you can feel it out to whether or not it is the truth. But what about the people who don't feel things out, and these teachers who are digital, right? That these teachers that are digital, They just have the program, they just have the information, right? Will it be enough if people like me, right, who are a little bit uncomfortable, but understand that these conversations have to be had, right? Because we are getting too close to each other in this world, and right, people can see that there are differences and not wrongs or rights, but we look at them as wrongs and rights because they're things we have never experienced before. So maybe in this idea that I show up every day fresh like a loaf of bread with whatever lesson that comes across my path, right? My lessons come from all kinds of sources, but maybe the idea of my purpose is to, because I feel with my emotions, that maybe in the lessons you might recognize me. And if you don't recognize me, right, that will be okay because I'm here on YouTube, right? I'm with Google, and Cindy's not coming back, but those other parts of me, I was going to say may. They will. I'm positive those other parts of me will. And I think because I've been in communication, I think communication has been with me, right? Working in emotions is, I think, brand new, right? Otherwise, I would have been here lifetimes ago. But the lessons come when the lessons come, and the lessons only come when we've completed the lesson that we need before that, right? So, when we talk about purpose, right, for today, as a first impression, my purpose is not realized in myself, right? It may not ever be realized in this lifetime, right? And that's okay. And that is more than okay. But that idea that I show up here every single day and sharing what I resonate with, because I'm out there, you guys, and I'm feeling where the truths are, and I'm feeling where the untruths are, right? And, I'm sure I'm not the only one who sees it clearly that way, right? But at the same time, I worry. I worry because of the digital age. And I think I woke up to some of these ideas. And I think I come in here and I spew some things that Cindy doesn't truly understand. And yet I understand, right? So I have to find a way so that other people can understand that. Maybe they can feel me out. Maybe, maybe that's the only people that will get this content are the people who are also feelers that way. And then they can feel for themselves what's a truth and what's an untruth or what's a misunderstanding, right? Because there are misunderstandings along the way, right? I thought this was all about something else. I really thought it was about something else. And I'm kind of waking up to realizing that, right, it is something else. And in not knowing what that purpose is, who am I to show up here, right? And express myself in a way that represents something that might feel like it's understood. I don't know if any of that makes any sense. I was trying to feel that out. Feeling it out. I'm worrying about the digital age, right? I think we're right to worry about the digital age. Not necessarily in this moment, right? Maybe it'll be a couple of generations down the road, but I think it starts here, right? That as a human race, we made this choice, and this choice is going to create some problems, and it's going to um, take us down some side paths, take some people down some side paths for sure, right? And so maybe that idea of me showing up here every day, it's not my purpose, right? It's my purpose. Right? Cindy is just, right? I'm an explorer. I'm an explorer. I explore the inside and I explore the outside, right? That's my purpose, I guess. I explore the inside and the outside. It sounds good. And it is the truth for me. And what resonates with you, right? And that's okay too, because we're all untangling wires. And depending on the life we've led, the people that we are, the limiting beliefs that we have, the problems that we have, right? The talents that we have, it will only designate what the lessons will be. And we can appreciate the differences in each other, right? And that's I'm optimistic for that. I'm optimistic for that. For as many as we can, right? I've got great people, right? Hopefully they still love me. Right? I have great people. And I think no matter who I was, as long as I was kind and I used my values to move along, and that I didn't strike out in my anger or my misunderstanding or in my fear, right? Or in that toxic shame and that toxic guilt that is always looking to give the guilt and blame to something else, right? And that's what we do. We don't want to carry that stuff, especially when it's not ours. We don't want to carry it. But we tend to carry it anyway, right? Even when it's not ours, we tend to carry it anyway. And I guess maybe that's part of the problem too, because I don't want somebody else's problems and somebody else's ideas interfering with what I resonate with, right? Because there are people I care about, people who I admire, right? People who I take lessons from, right? That have amazing lessons, but there's a lot of filler in between. Just like with Cindy, just like with me, right? There's filler. There's filler, but you've gotta pick through it, right? And that's unfortunate. But as I move forward, as I get better at what I do, as I better understand what's going on, maybe that purpose will be more compounded, but I'll still be showing up here every single day, right? Every single day. I have to leave it at that. I have to give it some contemplation. This is a big word, you guys, especially in the lessons that I've been getting in the past few years. Purpose is something that comes across my path every single day, and that's a truth, right? I've taken a lot of lessons online. Just online, that word purpose. comes up all the time. And I have a lot of lessons in purpose, right? And maybe we'll go over a few of them this week. Tomorrow, I'm gonna pay attention today. I think that's what I'll do. I think I'm gonna pay attention until I come back live tomorrow and see, right? I'm not gonna look for it. I'm just gonna stay open to the idea, right? Don't make it scary. Right? Baby steps, you guys, right? And that's okay to do baby steps because, like I said, we are so far away from understanding any of this, right? But we do have to resolve the problems that we are creating in, right, this digital age that we live in. And we don't want to make things worse. We really don't want to make things worse. We want to make things a little bit comfortable for ourselves, right? Make it so that we can untangle those wires a little bit so we can better understand ourselves, and then take away that friction, right? Because I think that friction is our downfall, right? That broken yolk that's kind of just broken into the egg whites, right? That's a better analogy than the one I had. But yeah, it's almost exactly like that when you break the yolk and it just kind of spills into the whites, right? You're never going to get that yolk into its yolk form ever again, right? You could take it and scramble it and blend it all together, right? But if those things are thoughts and emotions, right? And they're conflicting, that's just going to be very, very painful. And I think that's where, right, that mitochondria starts dying on us, right? That's when our emotional well-being starts failing on us. That's when we get illnesses and, right, aches and pains, Charlie horses, right? It's all meant to get our attention so that we have an opportunity to do something about it. This is the way I feel about it, right? But if we can go back, taking it from the egg yolk that's kind of spilt into the egg whites, and then go back to that analogy of, right, untangling those wires. It's not exactly putting the yolk back into the form, right? But it's about taking the yolk as part of the finished, right? Still amazing. Scrambled eggs are delicious, right? But it's the makeup of the eggs, right? Right? Maybe we don't like scrambled eggs. Maybe we like basted eggs, right? And once those well, I I don't want to confuse the two, but once the yolk is, right, broken in to all the egg whites like that, you're never going to get it that formed anyway. And that idea that I have that you can't cry over spilt milk, because you can't. There's nothing you can do. You've broken the yolk, right? So it's just a matter of maybe we can scoot the yolk onto one side, right? You know what I mean? You can take all that yellow stuff with the fork and just kind of put it off and scrape all the white to one end, and then you're keeping it separate. But the thing is, there's still around the edges, right? Still around the edges where you can still see the yellow, the yolk touching up, and that's the pain. That's the uncomfortableness, right? Because we haven't quite figured each other out yet, because we haven't figured out what the purpose is, right? Because we haven't gotten those lessons yet. there, Nancy, because that hypervigilance, right? I don't, the thing is, as an adult, right? That hypervigilance isn't as scary as it used to be, right? Because those dangers, right, that made me hypervigilant to start with are not in my life and most likely will never come into my life again. I mean, it's not often you see adults hitting each other, right? There is violence out there, there is unkindnesses out there, right? But I don't think in my hypervigilance that I am worried about physically being hurt, but I am worried, right, of my emotional well-being. I am, right? I have been graced with physical good health, but in some of those lessons that I've taken in, right? That trauma bonding that I did, that codependency with my father, that narcissistic relationship that I had with my mother and the golden child, who, after when my mother passed away, right, took on a lot of her traits, right? It has created the person that I am, right? Created the person that I am. And in my hypervigilance, yes, right? But I jump into things. I make silly decisions. I make spur of the moment, right? But you're right. I am cautious, right? I am cautious, and I wouldn't be doing the things I was doing right now if I had all the answers that I needed in my life, right? Right? I don't think, right? Everybody can have an idea of what that purpose is, right? Nancy, your purpose in life. Nancy, tell me, do you know your purpose, dear? I would love to know your purpose, and I hope it's something absolutely, absolutely light, right? Because you bring so much to my brand in the conversations, in your insights, right? In your own unique story that you have no problem setting on the table as an example, right? It was like you were saying yesterday, you really got me interested in something. On my live show, I have another live show, Chatters Live, on Sunday nights. Everybody is welcome to come and hang out with us. But when you said that yesterday, that after all that trauma that you had gone through in your life, and I know your story, Nancy, all that trauma that you went through your life, and yet you never became hardened, you never became cold, right? You always stuck up for your rights and you always fought for your rights, but you were never vindictive, right? You never went for the jugular, though it would seem, right, that after everything that you went through, that it would be understandable if you did, right? And you're right. I don't see any of those traits in you, Nancy, right? I think you're just racking up the suffering. You're just racking up the grief. You're just racking up the struggle and the pain, and you are huge, like I'm, right. I am certain that, right, because it all has to be returned to you, Nancy, right? It all has to be given back to you. It's one of the first lessons I learned. Whatever was taken away, it has to be returned. And you've had so much taken away from you in your life, right? So I suspect that somewheres along the line, it has to be given back to you. And maybe it's that idea that I have such good health that maybe that was a pre gift. You know what I mean? Kind of an incentive, right? An incentive for me to move, even though I don't understand where the end destination is. No, I understand that. You can't cry over spilt milk, right? But can't you express that anger? Like, it would seem to me that, right, you could have those thoughts of retribution, right? That somebody should pay for, right, what you went through. I don't know. I just found it very, very curious because maybe it was just in my upbringing being so different than yours that, that I just don't get that somebody could go through so much more than what I went through and yet come out the end, right? So magnificently. Well, you're not always positive, are you, Nancy? Right? Right? But you recognize your scary situations and you take care of yourself. You give yourself what you need and you find the resources that you need, that no matter what, right? You make sure that you're okay. And that's something that we have in common there. But yeah, it makes me curious. I've been giving it thought. I gave it some thought yesterday after the live show. I found it to be very, very curious, that. And now that you're saying that, I can use my husband as an example, because when my husband came back from Croatia, I didn't know it. I didn't know my husband had post-traumatic stress disorder until after the first time me and my husband split up, right? Yeah, I went back to him. I went back to him, right? You gotta put everything you can into a relationship if it's important to you, right? But my husband came home. I didn't know he had post-traumatic stress disorder. But in the military, it's odd because people go through the same experiences, go through the same traumas, yet some people don't get the post-traumatic stress disorder, right? And then some people just get light issues, maybe some nightmares. But then other people, it just totally messes up their entire life. And I think it's those differences that I was talking about, right? Those uniquenesses, right? I grew up in the 70s. I knew my family was unique, but I thought all families were unique because all families were different, right? All families were different. So I thought it was okay that we were different. I didn't think anything about, my mother joining all these different kinds of churches. She stayed in Christianity, but she popped into all these different types of religions, Jehovah Witnesses and Gospels and Anglicans and Protestants and Pentecostals. Like, as growing up, we went to all those churches. It wasn't too confusing because, God and Jesus are in all of those religions, all those denominations. But then my father, he never went to church. Yet my father worshiped differently than my mother did, and yet I didn't think anything different of it. I didn't think it was strange, right? I just right? That was it just seemed just perfectly normal. And yet nothing about my family was normal. Nothing. All of us girls have issues, but at the same time, all of us girls, and I have three sisters, me and my three sisters, right? But all of us have something very special and very unique about us, right? My sister Tracy, right? She's a millionaire and she's super smart. She's a businesswoman. And then my sister Alice, who's the most magnificent entrepreneur, and I hang with the entrepreneurs, right? And I'm not jealous of my sister Alice, right? I think it's absolutely magnificent. She supported her family for 20, 30 years in what she does. And she loves what she does. I know I'm going to get to, I saw those comments. I'm coming right back in. Okay, I'm stopping here just to see what Nancy's saying. Nancy's saying you have to take things in and think about what the next move is. I allow myself to be led for the most part in what I'm doing right now. Um, I I thinking I contemplate, right? Because if there's a thought, then I just kind of, right, I do the dishes and contemplation. It's I'm maybe just digging. That's I guess exactly what you're talking about, Nancy, thinking, right? Contemplation, thinking, it's the same thing. But when I look at contemplation, I look at it almost like meditation. I don't look at it as thinking because I have to go to another part of myself, right? Right? I have to go to another part of myself, and going to another part of myself is like meditation. It's like me showing up here and having these conversations and then having to come back into the live and watch it again because I know there's a lesson for me, right? Okay. Um, Nancy's saying she put out a video tonight. Nancy's also a YouTuber. And I put out a video tonight and I did a little rant so I could get some input. It's normal to feel mad or angry, but to get violently mad does no good. And you're 100%, you're 100%. And but the thing is too, my idea and what I would do, because right, I was an avoider. I would avoid that angrier, right? Or if I could feel that it was building, right? I would just be out of sight, out of mind for the best that I could, right? But that anger, it's just, I don't know, it's just not there. And I try to look, and in truth, I'm not sure if anger was a big part. I think it was always just guilt and shame and fear and misunderstanding, right? For me. And sometimes when we are frantic, and sometimes when we are nervous, and sometimes when we are scared, it's kind of that peacocking that we do. You know what I mean? When we go, don't mess with me. Rah, rah, rah. Like it's all air. It's all talk, right? Okay. Interesting conversation, Nancy. Okay. Cindy, remember in any bad situation where a person makes you mad or something makes you mad, you have to say, okay then. And then be a better person and adapt and think it out. You know what? In recent months, I've had those situations pop into my life, and the result of those interactions and events, right, or experiences, if I hadn't done exactly what you're saying right there, you know what I mean? That you have to just be the better person, right? Just turn the other cheek, right? And I don't like, Cindy doesn't like turning the other cheek. I like, if somebody's got something, it just sounds narcissistic though, doesn't it? Right? And I think that's part of the problem to coming to the surface with the purpose, right? That, right, is because I am butting heads against my own sense of control over my life, right? Over my life. But when I share these experiences and conversations, right? Because I have ideas, all I can do is throw the ideas out there, right? But everybody's got to feel it out for themselves, right? And you're right. I just have to be the better person, and I do. I right? I'm proud of myself that recently that these experiences that have been coming in, and maybe that's part of it because I haven't been recognizing those lessons. I recognize that in the moment I go, oh, I didn't do that, or normally I would cry at this moment, or I would feel offended, or storm out, or right, kick this job, and right. But that's part of the values. That's part of learning the etiquette so that we can get along with people who are a little bit different, that we can have a little bit of compassion to the point where people are at in the moment. It's 10:30 at night, you guys. I think I've been yapping for over an hour here, right? I've done 4-hour lives, right? But in that first perception, yeah, it's that idea that when it comes to purpose, it's only going to be revealed through moving in it, right? By making choices and just getting to work and just taking in the lessons. And once one lesson is absorbed, the next lesson will pop in. And that's what I can say for that is I could just show up here every single day and use some of those values that maybe everybody, right, could tolerate, right? Maybe they don't want to. Maybe they want to jump in and tell me, oh, Cindy, your hair looks terrible today. Look at that big spot on your shirt, right? I spilled coffee all over me today, right? Say, oh, Cindy, right? Those topics you're talking about, I don't get anything, right? You you need to see a doctor, right? Then again, that's the thing, right? That's that judgment of what other people think. And I just have to remember that I am a unique, that I am a unique. And I feel good. People are getting me. Uh, Maybe not agreeing with anything I'm saying, but that's okay, right? They're hearing me. That's a good start. That's a good start. And maybe you'll go off and you'll go watch so and so's video and they'll have a conversation. And then all of a sudden you go, oh my goodness, that's what Cindy was talking about. And then we're all back on the same track again, on the same branch again, right? Okay. Cindy, when I was growing up, I went to church until about the age of 10 or 11. But to tell you the truth, I never believed in God until I got to be a lady at the age of 20 or so. And can I ask you the denomination, Nancy? Because, right, I feel we have a camaraderie, right? I feel that, right, we have been traveling together, right? And if that's the case, then maybe, oh, Catholic, okay. Yeah, my mother, I think, officially Protestant, right? Protestant. My father was spiritual. He never went to church or anything. I think the only church he ever went to is when he got married, right? But I was stuck in the middle. But I guess because I was my father's daughter, I had those those swaying traits, right? That made it so I bent more towards his way of thinking, only because it was comfortable, only because it was safe, only because I was seen and I was heard, right? And I can't say that idea that maybe my mother was in the right, because as human beings, right, we know the difference between right and wrong. I think we all understand the difference, right, between right and wrong. Not what is right and what is wrong when it comes to information, but truly when we interact with each other, what is right, what is wrong, right? We don't lie, we don't cheat, we don't steal, we don't kill, right? We don't, right? But then there's that idea, honor thy mother, thy father. How many kids right now are being traumatized and abused at home and going to Sunday school, Nancy, on Sunday and being taught the golden rule, right? Being taught to honor thy mother and father when all there is that toxic shame and toxic guilt in them because they can't, right? They can't honor thy mother, right? Or they can't honor thy father because of what is obvious in the difference between right and wrong, right? We'll go into that another day. We touch on it here and there, but I think for the most part, if anybody is here, you've gone through traumas in your life, right? You've gone through difficult times. Otherwise, you wouldn't be right. You wouldn't be led to this kind of content, right? Just like I was led into this type of content, and it served me well. And if you're just being introduced to it, right? I would suggest to you to take a look at the leaders of the world, right? The top of the world, people that you admire, right? People that you think have done really good. But really take a look, right? Really, really take a look. And you'll see that they're able to connect with people that are different from themselves, right? They can do that. And just like I can do that too. And it's absolutely amazing. But if we can connect that way by just using our morals, then we have an opportunity to better understand each other, right? Because we don't get each other right now. And we're not going to get each other until we can get ourselves. Oh my goodness, that was my cue to tie it up. Yeah, I know. The kid that young doesn't understand, but I understood, Nancy. I understood. I clearly could see there was something messed up. That right? I had friends. We're not going to get into the topic of right, but yeah, kids understand a lot more than what we give them credit for, right? And if they don't understand it, they end up with right, hypervigilance, and they'll have the hypervigilance and they'll come from the same place, but they won't understand where it comes from, right? Because they were a child, they didn't understand, right? Oh, you're right. Yeah, no, you're 100%. But anything beyond that, yeah, they won't get. So I didn't understand when those other things were going on, right? You're told to be good, and then you're good, and then all of a sudden, right? You're being treated like you're bad, but in your mind you think you're good and you can't see the bad. And nobody's explaining to you what the bad is. And if they're explaining to you, it's all mixed up. It's not attached to anything except to you, right? And it's not that I have not overcome and not done the work on that kind of stuff, right? Like, I understand the stages of my mother's evolution, right? I understand epigenetically that, she went through the same thing that she was giving to me. I also understand that she didn't get the love of the father, and I had the love of the father. And that must have been very, very difficult for her to see, because that was something she never received. She, again, not understanding that that was a possibility, right? Because that wasn't the life that she lived. In my entire life, my mother never kissed me. My mother never told me she loved me, right? She never hugged me. Though on occasion, right, we could kiss her on the forehead like she was the Queen of England once in a while, right? And yet she was like this to all the kids, to all us girls. And all us girls, right? My sisters just thought it was perfectly normal. And now we all have problems that way that we're not. That's not true, because I was very affectionate with my husband, but I never saw it with my sisters, with their spouses, with their partners, right? Up until recently. And I think it's the fact that we haven't always picked well for ourselves, because we're picking because of the lessons we received when we were kids, because we are unique. We need unique. And if you can't get the kind of unique that you need, you're going to settle, right? And for me, I was very lucky. I met a man who was almost exactly like I was, who almost came from a very similar background that I had. He was 10 years younger than I was, but we got each other, right, and we took care of each other that way, right? What, Nancy? You weren't allowed to even eat at the. How can you survive these kind of experiences, Nancy? This is what surprises me. How you, like, you must you. I was just gonna say, Nancy, you must have been born a soul, right? That you could understand these things so perfectly, right? Because it just seems perfect, doesn't it? Right? Like like the trauma, the problems have to be there, right? They have to be there, Nancy. I just, right? I find it curious. That's all I'm going to say. Quasimodo. Jog my memory. Quasimodo. He was an adventurer, wasn't he? I'm going to have to Google Quasimodo. Give me a clue. Give me a clue, Nancy. Quasimodo. So you just let it go? Is that what they talk about when they say let it go? See, but how do we resolve the issues, Nancy? When you just let things go, if it's always just spilt milk, if it's always, how do you let that go? I just don't understand how. Yeah, I just don't understand how you could just let these things slide because it's giving permission to those that did you wrong, that hurt you, right? Or is it because of this? No, it wasn't just circumstances that hurt you. It was people who hurt you, Nancy, right? I find it very I find you to be a very interesting, curious person, Nancy. I really do. I feel your heart 100%, but I just you have so much forgiveness and so much. Is it understanding, Nancy? Is it understanding of what happened, right? That ah safer to shut up. I get that one. I get that one 100%, right? Because my problem was in being a truth sayer, and you know it would get me into so much trouble, and I probably got more in the way of attention or negative attention, right? Because right, I would talk back, or I would right scream to stop, or whatever it was that I fought back, not physically fought back, but tried to make sure that that person understood what they were doing to another human being, right? Me and my mother butted heads all our lives. Maybe we were more alike than we would like to admit, but yeah, that you can't do that to other humans, right? And that was just releasing some your pain to let somebody else carry for you, like all the trauma that you went through, Nancy. That was just people and circumstances wanting you to hold their pain. And I'm not sure if you did, right? But you must have had to, if you just looked at it like it was spilt milk, that you had to just let it go and let it be, because they would still expect you to hold it, right? 100%. There was one episode that, I had. It was probably the biggest episode that me and my mother had. It was on Christmas morning, and you guys know that my father was a compulsive gambler. He didn't show up at home, and I was very nervous because I could feel my mother's tension. I could feel the anger and the frustration. And I'm looking at it, the situation, as in a child's perspective, but maybe my dad wasn't at a gambling. Maybe because maybe he drank too much and he passed out, right? Maybe, right, my dad was a very handsome man, and again, looking at my father through a child's eyes, right? Maybe understanding as an adult, maybe my husband or my husband, my father had a girlfriend, right? Maybe my father had a girlfriend, and Christmas night he decided to spend it with her. I never gave it any thought, but it's a possibility, because that whole scenario, I was just looking at it in my fear. And I remember the living room was attached to the kitchen, because I could feel my mom's fury, because I was always the first that she went at. In that fury, I knew it was building, 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 and she wasn't going to be able to hold it very long. I went into the kitchen and I stayed in the kitchen, out of sight, out of mind, right? That idea, because my safety was my priority. But my sisters were in the living room with my mother, and if I wasn't there, who was going to get the brunt of it? My sisters would have gotten the brunt of it. And when I saw my mother going to hit my youngest sister, who was practically just a baby herself, right? She must have been 5 or 6 years old at the most, and she was going to hit my sister. I just came out to the living room, and remember what we were saying, like the safety, right? Sometimes turning the other cheek. And I just yelled at my mom, "Don't you dare lay a hand on her, right? Just because you're mad at dad because he's not home on Christmas morning." And my mother went nuclear. Like, my mother went in for the kill. My mother went in for the jugular. And the funny thing is, all my sisters were there. And as an adult, none of them acknowledge that. None of them remember that most traumatic moment in my entire life that they were witnessed to. They witnessed it. I mean, I was in the bathroom, right? Because that's where my mother dragged me to do her business, and she shut the bathroom door, right? But still, I have a problem with turning the other cheek because that just allows my mother not to learn the lesson that you can't do that to other human beings. And I was her own kid, right? I was her own kid, and I wasn't maliciously, right? Like threatening her in any way. I was just telling her, do not touch my sister, right? It was my youngest sister she was going to hit, right? Just just because she was angry with my father. And I'm not going to say just, because if my father was cheating, that was a big enough reason for my mother to be in that state. But how my mother expressed herself when she was in the state, that was the problem that I had with it, right? And because I always saw that, right, because I feel people out, that my whole life I have been like that. Even as a little kid, I was like that, right? Okay, let's go back, because I'm sure I thank you, Nancy. You're really helping me to understand this. You really are helping me to understand this going on. But I understand, right? Not to get angry. I wasn't allowed to be angry in the house anyway, but I found ways to dispel the anger, the frustration, the pain, the sorrow, the heartbreak. I mean, that was my mother, right? And I would find other ways, and those other ways were ways that my father taught me. Mother Nature, going for walks, right? Doing the things that I love. And then, of course, right, because you shut up, right? You shut up and didn't get angry with me. I I couldn't get angry. I wasn't allowed to get angry. So I would have to go out and dispel that energy, right? And again, right? That conversation we had last night and what we're having now, like, I can't understand that, how it affected me that way, but it didn't affect you. But if I look at it from my husband's eyes, where he had post traumatic stress disorder, but he had lots of friends who didn't get the post traumatic stress disorder. My husband's job was to dig up the dead bodies that were polluting the water system in Croatia, because people were just burying their families just wherever, and it was polluting the water system. So my husband's job, being a peacekeeper, he had to go in and he had to dig these people up and properly bury them, right? Properly take care of them. And there were other experiences, but he came home, and I knew he was different, right? But he went through an experience. I expected him to be different. And I thought, if I thought there was a problem, right? And that's my fault and that's my responsibility because that was my husband and he should have been a priority, that I should have been feeling him out that way. But because by that point we were no longer growing together, right? That he was living his life and I was living my life. And then we had this little life that was us in the middle. But there's all this space here between that life that we had and that life he had, and then that life I had, and then right and over here, like I don't know. I'm thinking that each one of us comes into this world with a different bit of sensitivity. And I think that probably, right, you were the Incredible Hulk when you came into the world, Nancy, that you were able to get through everything that you got through, right? And everything that you're going through now and everything that you're going through later, that, right, because it happened right away, right? It happened right when you were born, all of this, right from the very beginning, that probably you were born into it. You were born into that magic, that right, that you didn't even have to have those understandings because you already got those lessons a ways back. Okay. um I'm not religious, Cindy, but Jesus always taught me to turn the other cheek. And that's where I have to disagree. And I think possibly, uh, I do know that turn the other cheek comes from the Sermon on the Mount. I don't know if it came out of context, um, or he just expressed himself badly, because I express myself badly, you express yourself badly, right? My sisters, right? Everybody I know expresses themselves with difficulties at time. It all depends on the stresses, the emotional state we're in, the education we have, right? The people we have in our lives. Okay. But yeah, I do have a problem with turn the other cheek, because I think when we turn the other cheek, you're giving that person the opportunity to go off and do something, the same thing, to somebody else, right? I try my best, I was a chicken shit. I hid in the kitchen knowing that my mother was going to blow. But in the last second, when I saw that she was about to blow, I stepped in and I called her on it, right? Don't you dare, right? Just because you're, right? My mother never laid a hand on me after that day. That was the last time my mother ever laid a hand on me. I made sure that she received a lesson, and she received that lesson. Now, how she felt about me, that didn't change, right? That didn't change. She still gave me the death stares and she still talked to me like I was a piece of whatever, right? But that physicality was done, right? That she knew that I was serious, that when I said that if you ever lay another hand on me, right? She never laid another hand on me again. And that was the good thing about that, because I stood up for myself. That was the first time I ever stood up to my mother, right? Because I wasn't allowed to be angry. I wasn't allowed to express myself, right? It was always because I said so. Why? Because I said so, right? It wasn't quite said because I said so. It was kind of like, because I said so, right? Because I said so, right? Because I said so, right? I don't turn the other cheek. I'm not a believer in turn the other cheek. And I really, really hope, right? Because lots of people have their faith tied in with Jesus. And maybe this is why, right? I swing more on to the side that we're moving towards, right? That progress, that purpose of moving forward to that which I don't understand. And I thought I talked about that yesterday a little bit. Oh no, it was on an Instagram post too, right? About the failures, about the failures. And I think, right, it's okay to fail. It's okay to fail. But when you fail, that doesn't mean that you are scot free, because if you took somebody else down in that failure, if 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 uh, if you didn't step in when somebody wronged, right? If you didn't stick up for that person who was being mistreated, right? That karma, right? That would be on me. Punched a lot of pillows. I get you there, Nancy. I did that. Right? I did the I hate yous. I wish you were dead. Right? I did all of that. Right? Sit it because it's all I could do. But at least it was coming out of my system. Right? And I never did that, said those things to my mother, but I did say it to the air. And sometimes just saying it to the air is enough, right? Sometimes just giving it a little bit of time is enough, right? Just let things cool off a little bit. But I do believe that, if it causes damage to somebody else, and it started with us, that it came from our mouths or our actions, right? That is on us, right? That is on that is on that is on me. I'm right. I even to this day, I could say I'm not a believer in turn the other cheek. I just don't have the gumption to even pretend or even attempt to understand that terminology, because in my experience it doesn't serve. It it does serve, but it serves in a negative way. Oh, thank you, Nancy. So yeah, so you but see, that's the tactic, right? That's the tactic, because they're putting the fear into you, right? It starts with the looks. It starts with clicking the tongue, right? It starts with the little cranks that you're irritating me. You're giving me a headache, right? And then it get away from me, or right, or this is right. It starts with that, but then if you have that horsewhip just onto the wall, then it's just a constant reminder to be on your best behavior, to be how they want you to be, right? And you're not able to be yourself. I wasn't allowed to be myself growing up, right? Right? I really wasn't, because it was like a game of dodgeball for me. Nancy, first perception on purpose, and we went off track there, but that's the thing. This is my purpose, right? Right? Is to be able to have these kind of conversations, because, I think if you looked at it, you would really see what a miraculous miracle you are, Nancy. That the person you turned into be really shouldn't have been, that you got through, right? And that's teachable, Nancy, right? That's teachable. That's purpose worthy, right? But you're playing out your own story too, Nancy. What's your purpose, dear? Do you know what your purpose is? Oh, sorry, I just kicked my table. Before we end it, I would love to know, Nancy, what your purpose is. If you know, right? But this exactly, it just shows me. I think this was just one of those serendipities that you came in, Nancy, and you opened up that way and you tried to help me understand a different perspective. Ah, so Nancy, maybe you're teaching me compassion. Maybe that's what you're doing, right? I am a believer in adapt and conquer. You know I am, Nancy. You know I'm a big in adapt and conquer. But 100%, you're a great teacher in that 100%. And your compassion, your heart. And maybe because compassion is funny that you say that. Compassion is one of the girls I work with at work. That's her word is compassion, right? And and yeah, that's really interesting because then through all those experiences that you went through even as a child and you understood them and you stayed positive through all of that. You kind of understood what was going on, or you kind of accepted or let go of it, whatever it was that you did, right? It happened right away for you, right? It happened for you so long ago that it's just a part of you now that possibly, right, those wires are untangling, right? Or quite a few of them have untangled, and then that emotional pain that I would suspect, and what a lot of people, if they knew your story, Nancy, as well as I do, would suspect, right? Or expect that they would find it just as curious as I do to the person that you have become. That is an example for myself. I'm so grateful, Nancy, that you hang out with me, that you hang out on this channel because yeah, you're full of lessons, 100%. And yeah, just another way that we get lessons. And maybe that's that purpose in just being able to have communication and just to be able to talk honestly, just to sometimes just to hash things over. Sometimes in just Nancy explaining to me about, how she was able to overcome her limitations and and her dynamic upbringing, right? That's a good way of dynamic upbringing that she turned into the person that she is, like a magnificent contributor to this world. And oh my goodness, what an amazing purpose that is, right? Nancy, who teaches compassion, right? And teaches people how to adapt. That's our Nancy. Okay, you guys, that's my good cheer for tonight. It's after 11. That's a long one. That's a deep one. Oh my goodness. Gonna wake up tomorrow and not have any subscribers. But you know what? I'm still gonna show up. I'm still gonna show up. Okay, you guys, that's my good cheer. We'll see each other tomorrow. Have a good night, Nancy. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, it's through these kinds of conversations that we can just, what are you saying sorry for, Nancy? Yeah, no need to say Nancy. I'd like to say thank you. Of course. Oh, Nancy, no, 100%. Nancy's worried, just in case the comments aren't here when you come in live. Nancy's just worried that she might have scared people off. But that's the thing. These are the conversations that we need to have to help people understand. And I love different perspectives, right? And I love that we can have these conversations because we use our etiquette and we use our values to treat each other. with that respect, right? Oh, hi Sammy. Thanks for popping in. Yeah, Nancy was just sharing and she was helping me with understanding, she's had a very difficult life throughout her entire life. She's done interviews with me on Instagram if you want to go back and see some of those interviews, but I've never met anybody in my entire life with challenges like Nancy's has. And yet she has such an optimistic outlook. Unless she's working on somebody who's messed with her, right? But then again, Nancy, isn't that your version of not turning the other cheek? Because you don't let the authorities mess with you. You don't let people let you stay in the bed without a wheelchair. You don't let them try and force you out of your home, right? Right? Because you fight for your rights. And maybe this is kind of the idea that I have, because it's so personal with me, because it was such a personal experience with me, that I feel like I'm part of that conversation, that I have a right to make wrong or make right a wrong of not being more forward in my not turning the other cheek. And maybe this is part of my purpose, is to help people communicate a little bit better, so that the people who are misunderstanding us, mistreating us, right? And unintentionally, for the most part, it's always unintentional, right? Because they just don't know what they're doing. It's just their stage of evolution. We're all in different stages of evolution, right? You wouldn't even be having conversations with me. 2014. Well, you were here with me, Nancy, I think in 2014. If not 2014, shortly after. That's how many years that Nancy has been with my brand. And we've become good friends, haven't we, over those years? Yeah. Okay, you guys, I really, really, really do gotta go now. But no, you didn't scare anybody off, because these are the exact kind of conversations that I think, right? And it's the serendipities that, in that idea of what's my purpose, which is the word that we picked today, that we're going to be talking about all week. And today was just my first perspective on purpose. And I was shocked to get the word, because I knew in the moment I wasn't quite sure what my purpose is. But by the end of my first live, right, in this podcast, the first time, at the end of it, I think I have a clearer picture, right? It's in these kind of conversations that we have that we can find that healing. And maybe Nancy's found hers a while back. Maybe some of it is stuffed in a closet somewhere, terrorizing her, right? Putting these obstacles into her life, or contributing to some of that stuff that has been coming into your life your whole life, right? But as we get the lessons, we digest them, and then another lesson comes along, right? And we have the opportunity in our choices to munch on it like a pit bull with a piece of raw meat. Or, well, why don't we say, turn the other cheek, and just hope that somebody else will take care of it somewheres down the line. Okay, you guys, that's my good cheer for sure. Have a great night, and we'll see each other tomorrow. Bye bye.